Hey guys, it's Pastor Scott.
And his wife, Mac Huntley.
And after months of prayer, God is now finally bringing us to a new location. And come July 12th at 11 a.m., we are going into the Centennial Hills Library. So we want to invite you to Navigation Church starting July 12th at 11 a.m. to come make a difference for God and a difference in our community. We hope to see you there. Start a new series called Analog Life. Okay, we mostly know about a digital life, so this is analog. Okay, most people, for all you students out there, if you've ever had a radio, I know those old things in cars, and you actually have to change, like there's a dial. Okay, it's not a button, it's a dial, and you have to dial it up. That's an analog, okay? Digital is when you push the button and it just changes, okay? So we live in a very digital world, and so what I want kind of over the next couple of weeks is to how we follow Jesus, to kind of explore how we follow Jesus faithfully in a world that is absolutely filled with noise and distractions and things that are trying to take away our attention, and especially in a world that believes that digital connection is just fine. Okay, and I find that every moment, I don't know about you, but I found that like every moment of my day, something seems to be trying to get my attention, okay? Like if it's notifications, if it's content, if it's text messages, email, videos, reels, more content, news alerts, group chats, podcasts, ads, don't forget those, and of course, endless content. It's just always trying to get our attention. And I feel like we're constantly connected and consuming and scrolling, and sometimes I think it gets so normal that we just kind of realize, we don't even realize how much it affects us anymore, because it's just, well, that's just the way it is. And then I was going to say, rather than ask who has ever doom scrolled before, my question is, when was the last time you doom scrolled? Was it today? Or where you're like, oh, church isn't for an hour. Doom scroll. What I always find, what I love about the term doom scroll is that it has the word doom in it. And we're still doing it. You know, so I'm like, have you doom scrolled? And you're like, yeah, man, like totally done that. Like, you realize it has the word doom in it. Yeah. And we're still doing it. Yep. No worries. Like, I have a couple minutes before bed. Might as well go to my doom before I sleep, you know? Like, but is it like, and yet, we all do it at some point, especially for those of us who have smartphones. You know, and has anyone ever been, you actually try, you're like, I'm not gonna doom scroll. And then the whole SpongeBob 5 minutes later, and you're just like, man, and then you're like, what happened to me? Like, it's really happened to us all. What I find is that, you know, especially with the doom scrolling, it's not like we're doing anything useful, because we do, what do we normally get? We get like bad news, arguments from strangers, conspiracy theories, recipes we're never going to cook, and if you're like my wife, eventually you're going to find someone restoring some cheese grater from 1912. I don't know if you've stumbled upon the restoration videos. There's this massive amount of channels where they just take old stuff and spend a ton more money in chemicals to fix it up so that way it looks pretty. And it's like 25 minutes, and my wife, God bless her, she'll watch the whole thing. I'm not saying it's not impressive. It is. I'm just saying, good way to spend time before bed. You know what I mean? But a European digital marketing company, okay, recently conducted a 2025 study, just last year, on screen time usage, and found that globally, the average person spends 6 hours and 45 minutes per day at screens, and this did not include work-related things. So it's not like, oh, I'm at a work computer for 8 hours, that's 8 hours of my day. No. This is in addition to the work, okay? 40% of our waking hours are spent on screen. Think about it, like 7 hours, that's like another job, okay? That is, for some people, 7 hours is more than a job for them. You know, they don't even do a job for 7 hours a day. But I also found, you know, that's global, so, you know, like maybe that's the Europeans, right? They're always on screens, like, I think maybe. No, I actually found a breakdown for the United States by generation and age. Okay, so here you go. So Gen Z, you're pulling ahead with 9 hours. Good for you. Good for you. Don't let anyone say you don't do anything, okay? You're on screens for 9 hours. And so I assume that the older people who are on for 4 hours is just because they don't know how to charge their phone and they have to go to sleep early. So, that's what I assume. Because I always wonder, and I've seen it in my life where it's like, you kind of have more responsibilities and you do less. But I always wonder, am I ever going to get to that low number when I hit, 64? I don't know. Maybe. Time will tell. That's what's going to happen, right? But I don't think technology is evil. Right? I actually don't think technology is evil. I like technology. To be completely transparent, I am glad I don't have to clean up after a horse to be able to get from A to B. Okay, I'm okay that my car has been out on the street for the last couple days and I can turn a key and it works relatively just fine. I like technology. I have not churned my own butter ever. Okay, and I am perfectly happy as well. I went to Pennsylvania and go to Amish country and they're like, why not? And I'm like, well, I've seen you churn butter. That is why not. Here's a mirror. This is why not. Okay? So I like technology. I really do. I've grown up in it. But the constant noise and distraction that eventually does come along with it, I've seen can eventually pull our attention away from things that really matter most, especially God. And I think that whatever constantly captures our attention will eventually shape our habits and our thoughts. Because that's what we're going to think about. So if you have your Bibles, please turn to Luke chapter 10. We'll be reading a story about two women and their kind of interaction with Jesus. Just a couple of verses, and we'll see how distractions could easily pull one away from matters that are really important. And if we're not careful, we can miss something that's really important that's right in front of us. So we're going to be starting in verse 38. So Luke 10, verse 38. We're only going to be reading 4 verses down to 42. And if you don't have a Bible, okay, and you have your phone, there's a Bible app, and the Bible app would love nothing more than if you download it because it can send you notifications about updates for the Bible app. So there you go, okay? Don't say I didn't help you. So we're going to start out in Luke chapter 10, verse 38, and the words, of course, will be on the screen. Here it is. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her door to him, and she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made, and she came in and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work myself? Tell her to help me. Don't worry, that's perfect. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed, only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. I actually really like this story, okay? It's short, it's sweet, and it's only 4 verses. It's not like the normal 25 verses and whatnot. It's a nice condensed Bible. Who doesn't like condensed Bible, okay? But as we look at Martha in these short verses, I think that she's actually experiencing what so many of us experience day to day. And it's my first point, and that is we are drowning in distraction. Drowning in it. So in verse 38, you see that Jesus and his followers kind of arrive at Martha's home. Now, from the context of the verses, this was not planned. It's kind of like he showed up and he needed a place to stay. And Martha was like, hey, you can stay over, come on, stay over at my house. And that's why she's having to rush, because she had 13 people who kind of showed up on her doorstep. And she's doing something nice, so this wasn't like they imposed. This was her saying, come on over. But now she has 13 people to take care of, and she has to do a lot of work. Now, I know, in case you didn't know, hospitality was massively important in the Jewish culture, because if you left someone out in the square, it was like you just left someone to die. Because the thing is we can kind of understand, sadly we can understand it now, is that if I left someone out on the street in, say, downtown Las Vegas, and I was like, they'll be fine, okay, they will not be fine, okay, so they will not. And so most people, of course, when you're like, but they're a total stranger, let me tell you, if someone takes you off the street and downtown Las Vegas, you're going to be pretty thankful. You're going to be pretty nice. You're going to be really appreciative. Because the thing is that when they come to your town and they have to be in downtown, you're going to do the same thing for them and they're going to reciprocate and be very thankful. So hospitality was huge. So that's why Martha is like, come stay at my house so you don't have to stay anywhere else, you don't have to pay. And it was just what you did. But, if 30 people walked in my door, that's not a problem. I'm going to call up Domino's and I'm going to be like, okay, pizza in 30 minutes, no biggie, right? Let's bust out some drinks. I'll just put the tap water on. You got it, okay? Martha, sadly, did not have Domino's pizza, okay? She, and as refrigeration would not be made properly for quite a few centuries, you can kind of imagine that a lot of stuff is made the day of, the meal of, the morning of, and so when you have 13 more people, you have a lot to take care of. And so she's, she's honestly running around. But what I want us to realize is this is not really poor planning on her part. Like, that's not like Martha is running around. I think that she actually genuinely wants to honor Jesus. Because you think, like, if Jesus is coming here, I'm going to maybe tidy up the place, right? Okay, I don't know if you're like, my house can be, my house has visitors over it so much that I just keep it constantly. But like, have you ever had a house where you're like, you have clothes on the floor, it's dirty, and then you get a guest, and all of a sudden your house has to be clean? I don't want them to know how I live. I want them to think I live amazing, It's like we've all been, if you haven't been there, then you don't own the house, okay? Like, that's what our kids are like, why do we have to clean up, Dad? Because we're about to have a guest. Why does that matter? You don't realize why that matters. When I got a house, I was like, I finally understand why I have to clean up when my friend comes over. And it's like, why? Because it's just the way it is. So she is like probably doing what she thinks is going to be honorable, genuine, and loving. And you know what it's doing? It's driving her to distraction. And it's making her run ragged, and she's missing one of the very important things, and that is Jesus is right in front of her. And I think that especially like every single day our attention is under attack. And it's probably because of this thing, okay? Especially if you have it. Researchers actually found that our phones can affect our focus even when they're turned off, just by their existence. In 2017, researchers at the University of Texas at Austin, they published a study, and they showed that simply having your smartphone nearby, even when silent and face down, reduced cognitive function and mental performances. In other words, that even just knowing your phone is nearby meant you had a mental link and it distracted you. And they said that, just by it existing, it didn't even need to go off, people were doing that. I don't know about you, like how you use the internet. I have a lot of tabs open. Mac doesn't like the amount of tabs I have open. Does anyone browsers who look like this? Okay, this is the way my browsers kind of look like. What I love about this is that YouTube is in every browser. Like, and I don't want to lose the video. What's in your history? My history is 20, like I have had to go by so much that I'm like, I actually didn't realize how many videos in YouTube that I watched until I could no longer find it in the history. I'd do the view all and scroll all the way down. So don't worry, I just opened up another tab and I keep it open. But here's my question. How many of our brains look like this? Where we just have so many tabs open. And you know what? I don't know about you, but like Google got into a massive amount of hot water because Chrome seemingly, having this many tabs open on Chrome, people started to complain that their computer literally was slowing down. Yeah, I wonder why, right? And if your brain looks like this, do you think that it could slow your brain down too? I mean, like, have you ever had so many tabs open that your soul feels exhausted? Like, I mean, it's internal. You're like, here's something that I want us to understand. I don't think distraction always destroys our relationship with God because it's evil. I actually don't. I think distractions can destroy our intimacy with God because it's endless. And it's never stopping. And there's always the like, well, I'll just wait until this next thing. And I've been on Facebook, and your social media preference, you can literally scroll endlessly. The only time, I remember I stopped one time because my phone just stopped loading up Reddit. And I'm like, what happened? I know there's more Reddit. And it's like, well, internet's out. And I'm like, darn.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm like, what are you doing? I know there's more Reddit. Come on, give it to me. And it's like, thankfully my phone was like, Scott, I think you've had enough. You know, like it's time for you to leave now. But you know, Jesus one time said, had a very famous parable, and it was called the parable of the sower. And a lot of people may have heard about it. It talks about seeds, where God is trying to plant his Christianity in people's lives. And here's what he taught. He talks about a seed, one exact plant that is growing. And here's what it is. It's in Mark 4:18-19. Here's what he says. He says, still others, like the seed sown among thorns, it hears the words, but what? The worries of this life. Man, the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth and the desires of other things come in. And what does it do? It chokes the word, making it unfruitful. Now, Jesus is given like all of the massive lists. Can I say that endless distraction would probably fit into here pretty good too? Like maybe if Jesus had known about social media, he might have put that in there. But what I like, or what I think is interesting, something that I want us to see, is that it says unfruitful. It doesn't say dead. So a lot of people are like, well, you know, what about this is like maybe it's choking people to turn into non-Christians. That's possible. But what I also think is that unfruitful can apply to Christians as well, where you can be so distracted as a Christian that you just simply become ineffective. And you know what? That is what you can choke, like you can get choked. And this is why I want us to tell us that distractions can destroy our purpose. That's the big thing. Here, like, you want to know what? Distracted Christians stop paying attention to people in need. Distracted Christians stop praying consistently. Distracted Christians stop reading their Bible. Distracted Christians, in fact, it can even happen to churches. I have seen, sadly, a church that was so distracted and they filled up every single week and day with an event, and not a single one of them had to do with reaching anyone for Christ. By the way, I love potlucks. I do. I love potlucks. But it was like, let's us have a potluck, and they never invited a single person. They're like, let's have this amazing Bible study. I like Bible study. I have a Bible study. And then it was like, let's have Bible studies, let's have worship nights, let's have all of this. And when I asked them, how many people are we reaching in the community? It was almost as if I had like hit him in the gut, where it was like, well, we're doing all this stuff. Like, we're doing stuff. And I was like, I can see that. Is any of it helping reach the lost? And he couldn't answer. He was so distracted, the entire church became ineffective. That's why I think distraction is big. But I don't know if you've seen, I have what I've seen in this country, and maybe you have as well, is it's my second point, and that is this, is that I actually believe the noise is winning. I think a lot of people are like, a lot of times we're quick. I see that when I say something like this, a lot of people are quick to find the individual cases, like, well, Scott, last week, I was like, awesome, you had a good week. How about the other 51 weeks of your year? Well, we are really good at giving individual cases. And again, I always say it like gambling. Okay, people ask me, I'm in Las Vegas, hey Scott, do you gamble? I'm like, absolutely not. And they're like, well, I saw the billboard of like a guy who won $50,000. I was like, and he absolutely did. That one guy in all of the Bellagio history, okay, he won. And everyone else, and how many losers are there? Is that it's not that the noise sometimes doesn't lose. It's that it's all the other 95% of cases in which it wins that really takes us by storm. And that's what I'm saying is that what's interesting is you look at verse 41, when Martha actually kind of comes to Jesus and says, hey, can you help me out? He says this, Martha, Martha, you are, look at this, anxious and troubled about many things. Here's what's interesting. Jesus did not say, Martha, you're troubled by trying to feed us. You're troubled by trying to give us drink. You're troubled by making accommodations. He never said what she was doing on the outside. She said, you're troubled and anxious. Those are all internal problems. Those are the internal things. And what I believe is that the external noise around us eventually affects us by creating internal chaos. The chaos externally normally will eventually, given enough time, will create internal chaos. Have you noticed how, especially for those of us who actually read the news or have a podcast, most people now have podcasts, I mean it's the new news. Have you ever seen at least that it's not just about getting information, it's about getting emotion? So you have a podcaster, and they're not just giving you what their opinion is. They're giving you all of the emotion that comes with it. Can you believe? I'm outraged. This is garbage. This is terrible. This is that. That they're pouring in their emotion to you, all as well as the information. And what I found is we're no longer consuming news. We're carrying tons of emotional weight from everyone that gives us the news as well. And for those of us who listen to 2 and 3 podcasts, that could be a lot of emotion. And that's what I think is that has never happened. One of the things, I don't know if the more emotionally charged something is, I found that it gets more clicks, you know? And in a world that's driven by likes and views, here's how I sometimes feel my life is. Have you ever felt like this? Okay? The world is on fire, but you know what? This is fine. This is fine. You know, because here's the thing, is have you ever, sometimes you're around so much noise for so long that you're just this is fine. It becomes normalized. And that's why it's so funny, is the guy is don't you see the fire? And the answer probably is, it's well, don't you see the noise, the distractions, the doom scrolling in your life? And the answer is, of course I do. This is fine. How many of us have now become this person? And of course, whenever we put it up, it's laughter. Yeah, that's why I'm always laughing at myself, because I'm this guy. This is fine. He says that, Jesus says you're troubled about many things. I wonder, I love it if I only had one problem in life. How many of us are anxious and troubled about many things? Because if you think about, I don't know about you, especially for those maybe older, like myself, in the crowd, even silence is now uncharacteristically uncomfortable. Every empty moment has to be filled by noise. And by the way, I'm just as guilty as it too. I one time was having to go to my car, and I had to go to 30 feet, and I got out of my car and I put my earbuds in, and I walked 30 feet, which took 10 seconds. And then I took my earbuds. It literally took me more time to put my earbuds in, get a song going, and then take them out and stop my song than it did for me to walk. And yet why? Because I was well, I don't want to do 30 feet without some noise, you know? It absolutely happens. A recent study through the JAMA Network Medical Journal found that 90% of people, this should not shock us, 90% of people use electronic screens within 1 hour before bed, you know? I always find that the best way for me to calm down before bed is to pour stimulation into my brain. Best way. Just the energy drink where, oh, I'm going to bed, better have an energy drink, you know? But what shocks me is I hope we didn't pay any tax dollar money for that study. I really don't, because everyone knew that. Where it's hey, did you know 90% of people use phones? I'm actually shocked. It's not 99%. The other 1% don't own phones. Okay, that's what I'm shocked about. But here's what, as I said, is that I believe that the noise around us is creating noise within us. That's what it's doing. I want to just share you a really quick story about how the way God speaks, because I think that this might be what we need to hear. What we need to hear is that there's a great story about God speaking to the prophet Elijah, and here's just a few quick verses. It happened in 1 Kings, and this is what it says. Bless you. The Lord says, "Go out." This is the Lord talking to Elijah. He said, "Go out and stand on a mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." And then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and scattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. The Lord was in the whisper. Now, I want us to know, God can speak to us however he wants. God has spoken in thunder, God shakes mountains. But why does he speak in a gentle whisper? Can I submit to you? Because if you want to hear a gentle whisper, you have to get rid of all the other noise. Otherwise, you're not going to hear it. And sometimes maybe that's why God is I'm going to speak to you in a gentle whisper, because I need you to get rid of all the other noise around you so I can finally have an intimate talk with you. Because I don't want to yell. I don't want to have to fight. Has anyone had one of those? Did anyone have one of those teachers where it's all the students are talking and whatnot, and the teacher just stays silent? And then she just stays silent until everyone becomes quiet, and then eventually everyone's oh, she's not going to talk until we're quiet. And then eventually, everyone calms down, and then she starts talking again. I always kind of felt like, how long can I keep it going? But I didn't want to get in trouble because I was a really good boy, so I was like, okay, I'll be quiet too. But you see how like teachers did that, where they're like, I'm not going to yell over you. I'm not, because like if you get an F on the test, okay, like I'm sorry. And then sometimes I think that God, as much as he wants to talk to us, sometimes is like, I'm just not going to yell over everything else. I'm not. What I find that I know that there are people who have actually told me, like, I wish God would speak to me. And sometimes I wonder, well, have you tried getting rid of the noise to focus on him to speak to you? And again, it's kind of an obvious way, but a lot of it is like, well, if God is so powerful, then he should just do everything I need and I don't have to do anything. And I was like, God just doesn't work that way. And I think it's not because of who God is. It's because if God said, well, you know what, I'll just let all the noise and distraction just destroy your life and I'll just yell over it. I don't think that's what God wants. But here's my last point. And it shows from what Mary is doing, and that is this, is that Jesus' presence must be chosen. In verse 42, Jesus finally says, kind of replies to Martha in this way. But one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. And I think that the word chosen really matters. Now, maybe it's because I've had children. Children really change your whole life. I've always, when I read this and I didn't have children, I was like, maybe Martha's taken the easy way out. You know, if like Jesus comes in with 13 other people and Martha's like, we have a lot of work to do. And Mary's like, I'm just going to be by Jesus. You know, like, I'm just going to listen to him. And that's the important part, right? Like, not preparing all the food and beds. So I was like, is Mary kind of taking the easy way out? I mean, like, Jesus is probably pretty cool to talk to, I hope, you know? And what I started to realize was that this isn't about the what, it's about the priority. Is that a lot of people kind of, I don't want this to be like serving is bad and sitting is good, okay? I actually do believe that like, if Mary, as I said, the reason why this wasn't planned is if it was, and I believe Martha was like, hey, Jesus, Mary knew you were coming and she did nothing all day, I actually don't think Jesus would have probably said this. He would have been like, Mary, don't leave your sister to do all the work if you can help. That's why this is important, because he's like kind of dropped in unannounced, you know, and was like, hey, I'm here. So I don't want us, and I've actually seen this before, where we say, well, I'm going to focus on Jesus now as an excuse to not be prepared and be lazy beforehand. Okay, that is not a good read. What it is, and as I want to say, is that spirituality is not an excuse for irresponsibility. I've seen that before. It's like, I'm just going to focus on God now. And it's like, wow, you didn't focus on God 10 minutes ago. Well, didn't have to do work 10 minutes ago. And you're like, amazing how that happens. You know? So I just think that Martha is consumed by her responsibilities that she doesn't realize what it's doing. And have you ever found that now in today's world, giving someone your full attention is now pretty rare? Like, I mean, by full attention, that means you don't have your phone in front of you, okay? I talk to my wife, and I'll be on my phone because, you know, two things at the same time, why not? Because I love her, and she will be like, Scott, are you listening to me? And I will say, of course, and I will actually tell her word for word the last 2 minutes of everything she's told me. And it frustrates her so much. And that is much less a brag on my multitasking ability and much more of a condemnation of what she's really trying to say. Is what she's not asking is, Scott, are you really good at multitasking? What she's trying to say, and I'm an idiot because I'm a man who doesn't get hints very well, okay, like most men, okay, is what she's trying to say is, Scott, I would like your full attention. What she's trying to say in a roundabout way, as women are wont to do, is she's trying to say, well, if you're not good at multitasking, and I can find that you're bad at multitasking, I'll say, this is why you should put your phone down and give me your full attention. Fortunately, it blew up in her face, and I'm really good at multitasking, which is why we're both wrong, but really what she's asking is, can I please have your full attention? And I should, because she's the most important person in my life, is my wife. And can I tell you that that can happen true spiritually too? is that we can actually think like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm good at church. Like, I'm listening to everything Scott's saying. And then, like, maybe you are. And in fact, I do hope you are, you know? But like, we can do that absolutely spiritually too, where we don't give God our full attention. And again, we might be like, well, I gave him my full attention kind of that one day last week, right? Like, hey man, would you treat your wife that way? Would you want her to treat you that way? Here's something, I'll kind of end the point with this. Here's something that's kind of interesting, is that Chick-fil-A, leave it to God's chicken, okay, is now realizing that we are so distracted, now has a challenge. It is called the cell phone challenge. Here it is, okay? Where you get free ice cream if you just sacrifice your phone. You have to give up your phone into a container and literally have a meal in which you don't have your phones. And if you can do that, they will give you free ice cream. Like, can we say how amazing that is, where they're just like, we'll give you free stuff if you could just talk to the people around you while you eat our food. Sadly, I will say, it says North Decatur up there. That is actually North Decatur in Georgia, so that's not Las Vegas. None of our Chick-fil-A's are doing that, so I need you guys to get on this, okay? I want free ice cream, okay? But isn't it crazy? Like, isn't it crazy that they've had to go so far? I just want to leave us kind of with this one verse. This one verse, it's really big. It's Psalms 46:10. It says this, "Be still and know that I am God." That's it. Can I just say, I like that this is a very good verse because it works very well spiritually. Like, you know, to be still, and God says, you'll know that I'm God. I think it also needs to work on a non-spiritual basis as well. Like, as much as we are for spiritual restoration, is that oftentimes spiritual restoration can also lead to physical restoration as well. And I also want to end this point with a request. I know that a lot of people, they think that pastors are, you know, really because of their profession, that they are, you know, somehow given imbued by God with superhuman strength and superhuman powers. And what I found out is that pastors are human beings just like everyone else. And I succumb to the same temptations of distractions and noise. If you ask my wife what I'm doing before bed, chances are I'm doom scrolling as well. So like over the next 4 weeks, can I have your help to also be accountable as well? So this is a lot of not like, hey, you guys have distractions. We all have distractions, okay? All of us. And so much of this preaching is as much to me as it is to all of us, because we all, I feel, are now in a digital world. And honestly, Facebook does not care whether you're a Christian or not, as long as you're giving it your attention. It does not care. So, for application, I just want to leave us with a few questions. By the way, you know, if you need a good reason to put away your phones or do something, you know, tell them that your pastor made you do it. Okay, you just throw me under the cart. Okay, so if you're like, you know, hey, we're not going to have our phones at this table because our pastor, you know, gave us that Sunday morning service, just do it. Okay, but here's my first one. What distractions are consuming you so much of your attention that they're slowly pulling you away from the focus of God? I don't know about you, but I find it amazing that technology, like I said, I like technology. I like that my car goes faster than a horse. I can get from point A to point B much better. I like, you know, being able to talk to my mom 2,500 miles away in Florida at the drop of a hat. I don't need a letter. But isn't it amazing how the things that were supposed to make our lives easier have really, really made our lives in so many ways harder and more distracting? So my big thing is just what distractions are consuming so much of your attention that they're now pulling your focus away from God. And secondly, when was the last time you truly, and I want to emphasize truly, slowed down enough to be still and listen to God? I have a lot of people that are like, if God wants to talk to me, I am right here. Believe me, God knows exactly where you are, okay? He does not need a GPS. He does not need to be reminded. But I think that sometimes we need to be reminded where God is. That, I think, is the biggest thing. Because sometimes I think that we don't realize how anxious and troubled we are until we actually take a break and sit down. And then finally this. What intentional change can you make this week to give God and the people around you more of your full attention. Okay? And I try to use the word intentional and just more. So I'm not saying like 100%, okay? If that's good, if you do 100%, good on you. I'm not asking like, well, I just can't give all my attention. I'm not asking for all. I'm not using the word all your full attention. I'm saying more, okay? And I use the word intentional because, again, when people are like, if it happens, it happens. I was like, has it happened yet? Nope, but if it happens, it happens. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's not going to happen. So just what are you going to intentionally do? Because, like I said, I'm a terrible offender too. But I want you to know that, and I've tried to do this with everyone in the church, is to give you my full attention every time you give it to me. Not because I don't actually want to check my phone, but because I want every one of you to know just how important you are, because every single one of you is worthy of my full attention. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for all that you've done. I just ask that you help us in this really big struggle, Lord, because there are plenty of things that are going to take us away from you. And we are so in need of slowing down, of trying to get the noise out and the distractions out. Lord, please help us. Please help us help one another to just slow down and focus on what's important and to hear you. And Lord, if there is someone in this congregation who is really wanting to hear you or has needed to hear you, or they said, I wish I could hear you, I ask that you help them slow down, be still, so that way they can know that you are God. I thank you, Lord, for all that you do and all that you've done. I ask this in your name.